Caving, or spelunking, is not an activity for the faint-hearted. A term used for exploring the extremes of cave systems. The deeper you go, the less light, space, and even breathable air there is. Sounds like my worst nightmare. But imagine squeezing yourself over jagged rocks and through impossibly tight spaces in the pitch black when all of a sudden you come across a cave lined with crystals. Lots of crystals. Sparkling structures stretching from the cave's floor to its ceiling, with some as long as a school bus. But as mesmerizing as this place looks, you wouldn't have long to marvel at its impossible beauty. Well, if you want to make it out alive, that is. Why? Well, get your hard hat and your walking boots on as we cover what makes this giant crystal cave one of the most deadly natural phenomenon in the world. And look at some other caverns that, despite their splendor, you should never step foot in. A crystal clearing. Whether it's their supposed healing powers or the way they sparkle in the light, we humans have been obsessed with crystals for as long as we can remember. So, back in 1910, when miners from Nica, Mexico, discovered a cavern with short, sparkly minerals lining the walls, you can imagine their excitement. They'd found the Cave of Swords, a crystal-filled cavern some 390 feet below the ground. Now, miners didn't know this at the time, but Nica lies above an underground magma chamber some 2 or 3 miles below the Cave of Swords. Over the course of some 500,000 years, the magma-heated groundwater and oxygenated surface water gradually began to change the minerals in the area. Then, as the temperature of the cave started to drop below 133 degrees Fahrenheit, gypsum crystals slowly began to form. In the Cave of Swords, this temperature transition happened relatively rapidly, and today, it sits at around 116 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning the crystals only had a chance to grow a little over 3 feet in length. Still, a 3-foot crystal is a pretty magnificent thing to behold, let alone a whole cavern full of them. The Cave of Swords was the prize find of Nica for 90 years, until the year 2000, when miners were drilling a new tunnel through the Nica Fault. They delved 600 feet deeper than the Cave of Swords and suddenly stumbled across an even more jaw-dropping chamber, the Cave of Crystals. A very inspired name there, shall we say. It was completely flooded and had to be drained to get a better look, revealing that the walls and floors were chock full of gigantic gypsum beams. This was unbelievable. Not even a year before, the pulpy geode had been discovered in Spain, boasting similar gypsum crystals that reached some 6 feet 7 inches in length. But these were a whopping 37 feet in length, more than 5 times the size of those in Pulpy, with the biggest of them weighing a back-breaking 55 tons, making them the largest crystals to ever be discovered. But the mass of these structures isn't the only thing stopping you from nabbing a souvenir or two. The Cave of Crystals is a sizzling 136 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the reason why these crystals have been able to grow so big in comparison to those in the cooler Cave of Swords. For some context, though, that's hotter than the maximum temperature ever recorded on the planet's surface. Okay, but pack some water and a portable fan and you're good to go, right? Well, not exactly. This cave is a giant sweat box, with humidity levels reaching 99%. Because the air is so hot and humid, the coolest place in the cave would be the inside of your lungs. As a result, water would condensate there, effectively drowning you from the inside out. Without proper protection, people can only endure 10 minutes of exposure in the cave at a time. However, once mining operations in the area ceased in 2015, the cave was allowed to re-flood, protecting the giant crystals within and closing it off to all researchers and visitors alike. So unless you like the idea of scuba diving in a cave, 980 feet underground with almost no natural light, these incredible crystals and the death trap they're found in are off limits for the foreseeable future. You know what's not off limits though? Those like and subscribe buttons down below, and that way you'll never miss another one of my amazing videos again. All done? Alright, let's keep exploring. Mount Rainier Ice Caves. Woo! Those crystal caves were hot. So where better to cool off than Mount Rainier's ice caves in Washington, USA. Ice caves like these form when temperatures rise and meltwater runs through or under a glacier, leaving behind mottled passageways or caverns within the glacier itself. That's pretty extraordinary. But photographer Matthew Nichols was able to snap something even more spectacular in one of these seasonal caves. When the sun hits the top of the glacier, its light is refracted, creating this colorful masterpiece on the cave's ceiling. Man, it'd be so tempting to just perch on a rock and gaze at that rainbow roof for hours on end. But despite the pretty colors, this isn't a place that you want to dawdle in. No prizes for guessing that ice caves are really cold. Typically, these frozen caverns are a bitter 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, your normal body temperature is around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, but if it drops below just 95 degrees, your body enters hypothermia. This is when your heart, nervous system, and other organs stop functioning normally, and left untreated and exposed, you could be dead in a matter of minutes. So staying here too long or failing to wrap yourself up properly could be fatal. Yet it turns out that chilly conditions here are actually the least of your worries. During the warmer months, melting occurs in the Mount Rainier ice caves. And I'm not talking about drops of water. Chunks of ice the size of small cars have fallen from the cave's ceiling. Even if you manage to dodge a bulky block of ice, you may still not get out of there in one piece. Ice caves, like the one at Mount Rainier, are prone to collapsing due to the melting in the warmer southern months. As recently as 2015, collapses in nearby ice caves have claimed several lives and left many badly injured. Well, you don't have to tell me twice. I'm a stick to looking at rainbows in the sky. Lechuguilla Cave. Back down south in New Mexico, you'll find the entrance to the 8th longest explored cave in the world, Lechuguilla Cave. At 150 miles long, reaching 1,604 feet deep, it's the second deepest explored cave in the entire U.S., and it's also considered to be the most beautiful and well-decorated cavern in the world, with thousands of rare geological formations hidden within. From giant gypsum chandeliers and 15-feet-tall soda straw stalactites to this peculiar bubble formation stained in a perfectly straight line by the slowly decreasing water level over hundreds of thousands of years. Man, what I wouldn't do to see those things with my own eyes. But be warned, you don't want to spend too long soaking up these stunning sights, because the humidity levels here can hit 100%. In such humid conditions, when the air is saturated with water, our sweat can't evaporate, preventing us from cooling down. While trekking through this super long cavern may sound like a good way to shed a few pounds, walking in such testing conditions could put you at risk of exhaustion and dehydration. To make matters worse, Lechuguilla also contains many ditches and drops, with some vertical pits plummeting down a vertigo-inducing 300 feet. For reference, falling down there would be like jumping off the Statue of Liberty. Something tells me that exhaustion, the pitch black, and dramatic drops probably aren't the best mix. It's so dangerous that the historic cave has been closed to the public, with only the most experienced explorers and researchers permitted access. And even then, back in 2014, a rescue team was called to retrieve a stricken caver volunteer who'd only descended 180 feet in the cave. barely 10% of its known depth. Yeah, I think I'm good at the surface level, thanks. Griotakio. Tucked away off Iceland's Lake Mývatn